Good
Hello.
afternoon, everyone. Welcome, and I am excited today. So, we're going to introduce ourselves and then we will introduce Jessica in a minute. I am Christine with Intention Enterprises. I am your local favorite bookkeeper, business consulting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tori
Sorry.
Wynn Eubanks. I am with Renovate Business Solutions, and as a virtual assistant, I help you save time by taking care of all of those pesky administrative tasks that are taking too much time for you to do. Happy to help you take that off your plate.
And I
Marcia?
am Marcy Amaro, your speaking and self leadership coach. So I'm here to support you, elevate your leadership voice, figure out what you're meant to do in this world, and how to get out of your own way so you get it done. And I was introducing Jessica. John is behind the scenes.
Great. And John is on, but he is in the background today, and it will just be a ladies only. It'll be a ladies podcast for a little while until he joins. But I wanted to introduce my very good friend, because now I've known her for like a year, so now she's my good friend, uh, Jessica Smith Dos Santos. And Jessica, I don't have her bio in front of me, but I feel like I can speak to my heart from this. She was a nurse, so for me, that makes her a special person to begin with. She is an entrepreneur. She is a mom to two teenagers. She is a wife. She is a fur mommy. She has three doggies, and just an amazing person with a really great heart. Jessica has written a book, and here is her book. I won't say the word, but it is Things They Didn't Tell You in Nursing School. We're going to leave that part out because I don't want to be censored by any of the social media
Well, I always read it
platforms.
shot. The first time I saw it,
But
I thought, shot, like a
I'm so
shot.
happy to have Jess here to. Is that what you thought? Yes, the shot they didn't tell you about in nursing school. So, Jess, thank you so much for joining us.
I am so incredibly happy to be here. This is
Thank
such
you,
a
thank you,
fun
thank
group, and I
you.
can't wait to
Why
see
don't
what.
you start? Tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
yourself.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Oh,
can.
yeah, you can hear me? Okay, good.
Yes.
Good. Well, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you guys. This is so much fun, and I just can't wait for the conversation that we're going to have, because the one thing that I know about these kinds of conversations is that something inspired will happen that will be in service of the person who chooses to show up and listen today. So I can't wait to see what that nugget will be.
Wonderful. So, we'll start with questions. I was part of Jessica's beta program, so I've been lucky to see some of the progress of the book, and I've been to both of her openings, her book signings. She had one virtually, and then we had one in person recently in Lake Worth. So, needless to say, I know quite a bit, and I've read my book, so I'm very happy about that. But for the audience, tell them what inspires you to write this. Where did it start?
So honestly, it started in the midst of my own burnout. Like, I was absolutely burned to a crisp as a nurse. And I became a nurse because I love people and I wanted to serve people. But I got so burned out, you would catch me saying things like, I hate people and my soul is dying. Like, the profession of nursing literally burned me to a crisp. And I needed a safe place to be able to share my pain, to share my frustration. And so it literally started as 100-page Google Doc of me dumping my feelings. And as I was reading through it, I realized that this had the opportunity to be very healing, not only for myself, but for others. And it became a call to action for me to really hone my stories, to own the healing that came from those stories and to create a solution for nurses to be able to be more empowered in doing the hard things. And by hard things, I mean the emotions of the profession. Like, we are never taught how to be okay with doing CPR on a child that never regains life. We're not taught to be okay with, doing CPR on a mom and being worried about losing the baby. Like, these are things that we don't learn in nursing school. And I realized that my own pain and frustration, the root of that was not having the emotional tools that I needed to be able to really embrace the beauty that are the feelings that we go through. And so it just started as a place for me to dump my junk, so to speak. And it has really transformed into something that's in service and a tool and tangible stories that I know we all go through. And now it's become the they don't tell you in nursing school. And it is designed to really support nurses in doing the hard things better, because we can't have burned out nurses serving our community, right? Like, when a burned out nurse is the head and the heart and the face and the hands of healthcare, it puts people's lives at risk. And we need healed, healthy, balanced, happy nurses at the bedside. There's a call for that in our society. And I'm hoping, well, not hoping, this book is that call to action, and it does offer some solutions for nurses.
I really love, and we've had a conversation before about how I used to be a teacher and some of the similarities that we experienced burning out in those professions, right? But it's really important to note and think about how so many of the foundational professions in our society, those professions that keep society going essentially, are not taking care of their own, right? They're not really protecting the people that offer that service. There's a lot of burnt out teachers out there also who are supposed to support kids' mental health, but they're not stable in their mental health, right? There's a lot of police officers that are supposed to protect, but they're not protected and they're not feeling safe themselves, right? So we could go on for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Yeah. So I'm saying this as a preface to say and to ask, I know you wrote it with nurses at heart because that's your experience and that's where you're at. But I'm seeing already how this is supporting other people in other professions. Did you ever envision the scope of what you were sharing and the effect that it could have on not just nurses, but society in general?
I didn't think I did at first. At first, it was for the nurses, but the further I got into it and, sharing with people like Christine and my friend Danica, who are not medical professionals, and the impact, I have goosebumps, right? The impact that it had on them, knowing that they're not in the medical field, it opened my eyes to recognize that, number one, nurses are not alone in their struggle. But number two, this is a multidimensional challenge. And to your point, it's a challenge of all of the people that keep society going: the teachers, the police officers, the firefighters, the first care responders, the physicians. And we are in a new generation. Our society post-COVID is so much different than it was pre-COVID. And I think we're all like relearning how to human in a world that's very different than it used to be. And this book is meant to be the foundation of an entire series. It's like the new chicken soup, but it's going to be the they don't tell you about being a teacher, being a firefighter, being a police officer in law enforcement. And it's meant to be co-authored. And I know that for a fact. Like, I'm going to find those teacher voices, those firefighter voices, those police voices, and we're all going to come together and we're going to co-author these books. And the foundation is going to be, number one, at the top of my book says, real, raw, she holds nothing back. And I make that promise, and I totally fulfill that promise. And every book from this point forward is going to hold the same promise. It's going to be real. It's going to be raw. It's going to be relatable. But then it's also going to be a call to action to offer solutions for those nurses, those paramedics, those firefighters, those frontline police officers who are ready and willing to do the hard differently. This is their call to action, because the truth is our system for our frontline providers is broken. It is broken for the world that we live in, and I'm not going to fix the system, but I can empower those that serve in it to do it better.
Absolutely. I love that. And not to monopolize the questions, but I had a follow up on that because
And I think we can add moms to that list too.
right? But as a teacher, I know I heard all too often, oh, it's just because you're underpaid. But that is not even scratching the surface, right? So let's talk for a second about some of the layers that go into this burnout, right? Because I know, and I mean, I haven't asked you, but I'm willing to bet and assume that at your highest point of burnout, they could have offered you $1 million and you still would have been like, nope, I'm out, right? So let's talk a little bit about those layers if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, money helps, right? But money is not going to solve the problem, because the problem has nothing to do with money. And, to your point, I would be willing to bet that a lot of teachers, a lot of nurses, a lot of physicians would be really happy with less pay if they were appreciated properly, if they had patients that were grateful of the care that they were provided, if the healthcare system got rid of that entitled attitude, if we stopped pushing patient survey results as the foundation of the care that we give, and we stopped focusing on forcing people through a system, and we got back to the heart of healthcare, of truly being the hands and the face for our patients. Because for us, we got into those serving professions because we have a huge heart to serve people, and the system wrecks that. And I've said that before with the introduction of, the electronic charting, where my back was towards my patient because I had to serve the computer, where all of a sudden, we're looking at reimbursement based on satisfaction scores. Like, I'm not Disneyland. I'm here to do what's best for my patient. And when the system made those big changes, it really affected the way that we were able to show up as caregivers. And it disrupted the relationship that drove us to do what we do, that relationship that we have with our patients. And so, yeah, the problem is multifaceted, but money is not the only answer, because you're absolutely right. Like, when I knew that I was done, and even to this day, I've been asked to pull my nursing license out of retirement to come in and do like medical weight loss injections for a clinic, right? Like, super cush job, easy money. And I was like, you could not pay me enough to step back into that system. Like, I will serve people in a different way. I'm still very much a nurse at heart. My hands are open and available, but just in a very different way, in a system that is empowering people instead of disempowering them.
Absolutely.
Jessica, thank you so much for talking about that relationship that really seems to have changed over the past years. Prior to COVID, I would say, but definitely after COVID, because that relationship that healthcare providers have with their patients, it doesn't seem to be relationship driven. It seems to be more statistics. It seems to be more system oriented. And as someone who has found herself having to be part of that patient side over the past 6 years, I mean, I really did. I mean, I felt I was going through some very serious health issues, and I was being run through a system. It was about the statistics. It was about, well, the studies say that this course of treatment is being dominated by what this latest study is. And I really felt lost. And I felt that if I was not my own personal advocate, that I would not receive the health care I needed, because I would talk to the healthcare professionals with how I was feeling, but it wasn't me they were addressing. It was the latest statistics. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront and being someone who's wanting to be able to support, because I know these healthcare professionals, the doctors, the nurses, the technicians that you are involved with through a healthcare process, they got into it for wanting to help. And they themselves seem to have gotten lost and their hands tied because of, trying to get the payment processing or whatever. So thank you for that. I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, you're so welcome. You know, I made a pretty bold post on my Facebook a few months back that said if your physician doesn't first ask you about your diet and lifestyle before prescribing you a pill, you don't have a physician, you have a drug dealer. And of course, that stepped on a few of my physician friends' feet. And one of my physician friends commented by saying, we don't have a choice in this system anymore. Number one, we don't have the time because the structure of the system limits the amount of time that we're allowed to spend with a patient. And number two, we're doing the best we can with a very short amount of time with the resources that we have. It's not because we want to, it's because the system has forced us into that model. And I know that they feel the burnout just as much as the rest of us, because there is a time and a place for the system and the structure and the statistics of things. I mean, it's all valuable as a whole picture. But when we lean so far to the side of structure that we're not connecting with our patients, Tori, I'm so grateful that you are willing to be your own advocate, because that is what it takes. It takes you showing up as a patient, being knowledgeable about your body, being willing to go toe to toe with the system and to advocate for what it is that you really need. And props to you for being willing to do that, because in the healthcare system, I know that, there's a little bit of ego and there's education. And when you dare to go toe to toe with that as just a patient, there's even that personality dynamic, right? So I really applaud you for being willing to advocate for yourself, because you're absolutely right. If you hadn't have, you would have just been another number of a system, and you would probably not have gotten the care that you needed. And that's the unfortunate state of what our healthcare has come to at this point. And it's calling for a massive revolution, not only from the provider side, but also from the patient side. I think it's also calling patients to be more hands-on with their care, to be more educated about their bodies, to be more aware of the medications that they're taking and the things that they're being prescribed. And so overall, the system is not going to be fixed. It's us as individuals who are going to take it by the horns. And by doing so, we are going to shift the system.
And unfortunately, in all of this that we're talking about, when we're looking at the system and the structure, a lot of the decision making is not being made by the people with the right education or the right knowledge either. Like when we look at healthcare, so much of the decision making comes from health insurance companies that have absolutely no knowledge of what's really happening down on the sidelines, right down where the action is actually taking place. Is what I meant to say. Same in education. There's all these politicians and all these other people who are trying to make decisions when they are not really hands-on. They've never been on the floor handling what you handled as a nurse, what other people handle as whatever being on the front line means to them, right? But that advocacy piece, do you think we could use it to extend to that, to start speaking up against health insurance and their practices, to start mobilizing our politicians, those kinds of things?
I think it's like anything, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Because the squeaky you are about your own health and advocating for yourself, the more likely you are to get results. Now, whether it will fall on the right politician's ear or create a change within the insurance system, I can't guarantee that. But what I can say that I know for sure is that the squeaky wheel is the one that wins. So be as squeaky as you need to get what it is that you need from the system, whether you have to ask twice or 500 times. Be willing to keep seeking, because you will find answers if you're willing to keep seeking.
Absolutely. Christine, do you have a question?
I want to bring it back to the book. Yeah, I want to bring it back to the book. I want to ask Jessica about, when you were writing this, was this kind of an out-of-body experience, or did you submerge yourself in this process so that you could come out on the other end changed or different, or what was that process like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I didn't intend to come out the other side different, but I did. And when I say different, what I mean is healed, because there's a big difference between showing up in my life seeking answers because I'm traumatized versus showing up in my life providing solutions because I've healed. And this book really challenged me to go toe to toe with some pretty tough traumas that I had experienced in the the course of being an ER nurse. And I ended up hiring a therapeutic writing coach who supported me in seeing my story and my experience from all different angles, writing it from the perspective of the patient, writing it from the perspective of the patient's family member, writing it from the perspective of, if I had wanted it to go differently, what story would I have written? And in doing so, it just really balanced the perception within myself. And I was able to see how each and every scenario served me to be the person that I am today. And so knowing what I know now and having gone through the process of taking full ownership of my story and being willing to leverage the lessons, it changed me, meaning it healed me. And now I show up fully owning my story instead of being afraid to talk about it because I didn't know what to do with the emotions. Whereas in the past, if I talked about it or brought it up, I was straight to alcohol or sugar to fix myself. Whereas now I can own that story in a way that's very empowering and say, look, this happened for me. Here's how I know it happened for me. And here's how I know that everything that's happened in your life is happening for you too, with an invitation to step into doing that work rather than being traumatized by your story and afraid of it, to embrace your story and to learn the lessons that it presented for you.
How do you think it made the transition? So now you are an entrepreneur, right? You do coaching for not only nurses, but I know that is your main focus, that you coach other people because you've coached me as well. How do you feel that helped your transition?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. How do I feel that process has helped me?
Yes. And transitioning into as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So, there was a big difference between when I very first started coaching because I was seeking my own healing, right? So in the course of coaching others, I was seeking to coach them because I was seeking healing in my own story. And with each person that healed, my story healed a little bit more. And the messaging of that was very different because there was insecurities within myself of like, well, I'm still going through that. Can I even coach someone through that? Whereas now on the other side, I can show up fully authentically present with their pain. And I'm totally and completely confident that I can support them in moving through it because I've been on the other side. So as a coach, it's a completely different perspective, like coaching to seek my own healing, which I think is what a lot of us coaches, that's where we start. And then on the other side of that, coaching from a fully healed place is so powerful. And it creates an invitation for people to really own and heal their own stories with the confidence that they're spending time with somebody who's done it. Like I wrote the book, right?
Jessica, when it comes to the process of how you wrote the book, through your own journey of trying to heal through everything that you've gone through, I mean, I'm curious, how long did that process take? Was it years? How long did it take you to really get the book penned, so to speak?
So from start to publish, it was about 4 years. It took me about a year and a half to realize that my story had power and that there was purpose in my story. And then once I realized that there was purpose in my story, it took me another 2.5 years to really embrace it, to heal through it. I had to hire help. And then, once the story is finished, there's a final product, like a beginning, a middle, and an end, and all the stories have been told. Then there's the whole process of like, now we have to get it edited and formatted, and we have to create a cover, and we have to get it published. And there's so much just like from the publishing side, and that side alone took a good 8 months. But from realizing that my story had power to really turning it into something that was transformational, 4 years.
Wow. And during that entire time, you're also doing the coaching and healing yourself during that process as well. That's truly amazing.
Yes, thank you. And I'm really excited that I was willing to play the long game of this book, because it's going to create a fast track for those that come after it. Like my next book, co-authoring about teachers, Marcy, maybe you can come help me with that one, is not going to take 4 years, right? We have a framework, we have a process in place now, and there's no reason a book shouldn't take, 6 months or a year to be fully ready.
Yeah. First of all, I would love to support you in any way I can. I love you. I love what you do. So we'll chat. But secondly, as I was listening to you talk, I was also thinking about how you briefly mentioned stepping out with authenticity. And I wonder how much of this process of healing was also a process of rediscovering who you really are. Sorry. Rediscovering who you really are.
Yes. Well, I always say when your head and your heart disagree, your body and your bank account tell on you, right? So people think they need to get out of debt and they think they need to lose weight, but the truth is they need a realignment of their head and their heart. And I always say true transformative healing is not becoming something else. It's coming home to you, who you truly are. And we all know exactly who we were created to be when we're, brand spanking new, until some sort of trauma in our lives happens and we get disconnected, right? Our heads and our hearts get disconnected, and we fall into misunderstandings of the ways of the world. And we finally go through enough pain that we're like, okay, not this. And when you reach that not this moment, that's when you start asking, okay, if not this, then what? And that's a powerful place to be, because you may not know, like, I don't know what's next, but I do know I'm not willing to do this anymore, and that there's more for me. There's an alignment for me. There's healing that will happen. And whether we have that language to describe it or not, I didn't have that language. The language I did have was, I'm so mad that I am not willing to do this anymore. My time and my energy and my emotions are expensive, and I am no longer willing to spend them on things that are not serving me or serving others. And I made that shift into realizing that my time and my energy and my emotions required investment. No more spending them on stuff that don't matter. I'm only investing those in things that will grow me and will serve those in my path.
That is so cool. I love how you went into the not this, because most people I speak with can spew out what they don't want really quickly. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. But if you ask them, okay, so what do you want? Then they feel stumped, right? And I think part of it is we are not taught or trained to really tap into what's inside of us and allow ourselves to be honest with what's inside of us, right? But another part of that is we are, especially women, we are taught to suppress so much of who we are and what we want and what we envision ourselves being, to the benefit of family or society or whatever they want to call it, right? So there's so much guilt behind it. Now, to those of us who might be in the process, and I know I've gone through the process, I know most of us have, but who might be at the starting stages of the process of understanding or realizing, yeah, there's too much of the not this. I don't know how to get into the this, but what I know is I feel really bad that I'm even thinking about the this. What would you say to them?
I would say you're exactly where you need to be. Don't stress, don't worry, don't judge yourself. But a really great game to play is like fold the paper in half hot dog wise, right? And do two columns, and on one side write not this, and just let it flow. And a clue to what I do want is oftentimes the opposite of not this. So just challenge yourself to write like, okay, I don't want to feel angry anymore. The opposite of angry is what? What is that to you? Is it joyful? Is it connected? Is it peaceful? Like, what is the opposite of that to you? And then let the opposite of the what I don't want be your guide. Let it awaken you to what's really inside, because it's a great, if you know not this, perfect. You're exactly where you need to be, because until you know, until you have a clear no, you cannot clear ask. So start with the not this and use that as your foundation. It's a great start.
Love it. Thank you.
That's really excellent. So how do you envision this book like making an impact beyond what it started out? What's your let's talk about what's your vision? Where are you seeing it, and what kind of response have you been getting?
I'm so sorry, Christine. You broke up and I couldn't understand you.
Where do you envision the book going, and what kind of response have you been getting?
I think that
Yeah, I think it's her. I think, Jessica, you're cutting out a bit.
I know, I'm not sure if it's me or you.
Okay, so she asked, just summarizing, where do you see the book going, and what response have you been getting?
Oh, so I see the book as being a foundation for, number one, a curriculum. I just got a download for a college curriculum to be a part of a standardized nursing program, like how to handle the emotions as part of their curriculum. There is a call for that, and I just got a download that I'm like maybe supposed to create that, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be learning how to create college level curriculum, because it needs to start in nursing school. It needs to start as a foundation, not when a nurse is already traumatized and doesn't know what to do, number one. And number two, I see it as the foundation to create the entire series for every single profession, because that's the one thing that none of us are taught, is how do we deal with the emotions, the traumas of the hard things that we see. I expected to do hard things and see hard things as a nurse, but I didn't expect how I would feel, and then I didn't know what to do with those feelings. So I fell into the trap of overeating and drinking alcohol and being promiscuous and spending too much money, right? All of those false dopamine hits just to make myself feel better, when what I really needed was to feel my feelings and embrace the lessons. So this is the foundation for that. For I don't know how far it's going to go, but what I do know is it's already pretty vast.
absolutely.
And Jessica, just to hear you speak, that it started out with you and nursing, but your desire to want to be able to help all of the other frontline workers that have been completely traumatized and impacted just since COVID. And we're now getting 4 years out from that, but just seeing that those effects and how long it's going to take for us as a society to come back from all of that. Just seeing the endless possibilities of help that is now going to be coming available, because you stepped out in boldness to embrace what you were going through and how you're sharing that with others. So it's going to be really exciting to see what direction this particular book takes for you and nursing, but the plans that you have. I'm excited to see how it's going to land in other areas.
Yes, thank you, Tori. I appreciate that.
Speaking of like,
well, Jessica, tell us where we can get your book.
Sorry, Christine. It always seems to be with you that I break up the most. I think you said, tell us how to get the book. So
I don't know what's
it's on
the story. Where can they get your book?
So we can get the book on Amazon, and there's a little trick. You have to type in SH*T. They don't tell you in nursing school to find it. If you type out the word shh, you won't find it. So next time I do the title, I'm going to know better. So it's easier to find on Amazon. You can also follow me on Facebook. I have it listed. I'll add it to like my bio so that the link is easy to find.
Now, what else do you have going on? What else do you have upcoming? Do you have any more book signings? Anything else that you might want to share with the community?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Do you have any other events or book signings or anything else coming up that you might want all of us to know about so we can support you more?
Yes, girl. So I just announced it today on my Facebook page, actually. As a result of this book, I've realized that nurses needed more and they needed high touch. So I'm launching what's called the Heal Your Workshop series. And our first one is launching on March 30th, Saturday, March 30th. It's only $197 per person. And I have partnered with my fellow retired nurse. She's also a coach. She's a trauma informed. She calls herself the artist of the soul. And we have partnered together to create this virtual workshop to really get into the work. So it's very interactive. It's very healing. Like participation is required. Seating is limited because of the work that we do in a very short amount of time. So just follow my social media for that. You do have to apply. So that we're making sure that we're doing a good job keeping those seat sizes limited and making sure it's the most effective for healing in a short period of time for those that do sign up.
That is so cool. Can we invite people other than nurses, like physicians, healthcare people? Yes.
Absolutely, yes. Yep. I mean, it started with the book, but absolutely, it will be of major benefit to all in healthcare, frontline, firefighters, paramedics, police officers. If you're feeling called to heal your SHIT, now is the time.
Love it, love it. Thank you.
And I think the thing too, I think it's important for the family members of all of the people to have an idea of what it is they're going through, right? So I think the book also sheds light on it for those family members like me. My mother was a nurse, my grandmother was a nurse, my aunt is a nurse. It gives us some perspective really on what it is they are going through because we're not in the field. So it's good for family members too.
Absolutely. Because I know there were times in my nursing career where I was just so overstimulated that I didn't want to come home. I didn't want my husband to touch me. I didn't want my children to hug me. I was just so overstimulated that what I really needed was just like peace and quiet. And I talk about in my book that I would call home and lie like, oh, it's a really long shift. Like I'll be like 2 or 3 hours late. I was in bed, or like, oh, it's been a really bad day. I need to like deconstruct.
We seem to have lost her. Let's give it a minute and see if she is able to return. But definitely go out, find the book, look it up on Amazon, go find Jessica's Facebook page and her social media and follow her, because there is a wealth of not just information, but of healing to be found through the work that she's doing. So make sure that you go and find her.
Exactly. And we will on E3 post all of her information and upcoming events.
Looks like she dropped her.
Yeah, we'll post everything that we have about Jessica and her upcoming events on E3. So you can go to our Facebook page as well and find that information that will link to her sites.
Yes. Yeah. Jess, I know you can't hear us, but I'm sure you'll watch the recording. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And we're happy that you're able to make it.
Yes.
Do any
Yes,
of us have anything we want to share with the audience?
Well, March 1st, Christine and I will be part of From Idea to Execution on downtown West Palm, 311 Gulf Road. So if you are anywhere near West Palm and you're a female and you want to connect with other amazing people who are ready to take the next step in their dreams, come join us from 5:30 to 8:30, 311 Gulf Road. Space Connect.
I will be supporting you guys from afar. I'm so excited for this opportunity that you guys are presenting, and I just wish you all the best, and I'll be thinking of you.
Oh, thank you.
I wish I could come down and be a part and be there with you guys, but I'll be there in spirit.
Oh, thank you. We're going to try to figure out ways to stream it. So if we do, we'll let you guys know so you can see it.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.